This is the Amp Hour podcast, released March 20th, 2023, episode 624, with Scott Williams from Xentronics in Melbourne. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Scott Williams from Zentronics.
With an X.
With an X.
Not a Z.
Like xylophone. That's what I tell that's what I tell people on the phone.
Right, and it's Z, not Z. Because you're Australian like me.
Yes,
it's good to hear another Aussie voice, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Like I said before, it's great to, meet someone I've been watching on YouTube for 10 plus years and certainly an idol of mine.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it shows 13 years I've been doing this crap now. It's like, it's scary because you're a youngster.
I'm 26. 26. I'm very young. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Geez.
So,
but we're going to talk about the service, like you have your own R&D company who does subcontract design work.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess, Zentronics, we're basically a dream company for any electronics engineer who loves design. We provide as a service the end-to-end design, development, research for product development. So we service any sort of industry, really. We help with the very front end, doing concept level stuff, like what will the product look like, feel like, requirements, the fun stuff, the detail engineering, the PCB design, schematic capture, firmware development. I've got an embedded engineer, dedicated embedded engineer, software developers. Excellent. Doing that IoT cloud stuff, drivers, sensors, all that sort of integration work. We do sort of help clients coordinate, field trials, that late stage verification, validation work. And then we don't sort of just hand over the project after that. We also really own it, really get in the driver's seat with the client. We take it all the way through all the EMC testing, safety testing.
I was going to ask about compliance, and safety and product approval process and all that sort of stuff.
All regulatory compliance and approvals. We guide clients through that. We've done it so many times. It's quite easy for us to have those conversations and give some general advice at first and then get down to the nitty-gritty product specific. And then look further to that, we'll go on sort of support contracts with clients to help them find a manufacturer, tap into our network of, cable suppliers, battery suppliers, manufacturers for bare boards, manufacturers for the complete product, and, make the introductions, organize quotes, qualify the manufacturer, support with that handover, developing test fixtures, work instructions, and then, seeing that first production run roll out, I suppose. And then, full circle, right? We work with them to then say, right, what's next? Are we going to support this product long term? Are we going to look at end of life part issues and managing that? Are we going to look at software updates, bug fixes? Are we going to look at your next product line to, start to flesh out a suite of products, not just this one first product you've developed?
Right.
So it's end to end. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a dream come true. That's for sure.
Nice. At the ripe old age of 26. So that's impressive. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned there that you would, once, the design job's done, they've taken it into production, and then you move on to more of a support phase.
Yes.
Would you start like a new contract with them for support phase? How does that work? Because I can't imagine people were, because they don't know how it's going to go at the start. So you designer, you might start, please correct me if I'm wrong, and this is how I've done it, because I've worked in this myself, although I never had a whole firm behind me. It was just me as a contract designer.
I was there too, though. Yeah.
Yeah. You would just start, you sign a simple contract, we're going to design this prototype, for example. And then you'd have another one for, help us into production. Then you'd have another one to help us for support. Is that how it generally works? So,
and I guess this is the thing, right? I guess later we might talk about being a consultant. It's an interesting thing. It's something that's hard, can be hard to put into words, it is a bit of a unique position to find yourself in. And one of the key things I think to to be a successful consultant or run a successful consultancy is being careful with how much you're scoping into, not just in general, just in terms of each phase of work. A client, when they come to you, they would probably, if it's the first product they've developed, which they might not be a startup, they might be an established business, but it might be their first time developing a product from scratch, right? And as you would know, product development, that's a journey.
Oh, yeah.
The most simple of all products, an LED and a battery in a plastic box, that's a 6 months to production journey, right? That's it. But when they come in the door, they're going to have in their mind that whole journey. They're going to have in mind, give us a quote to get this thing to production. But it's like, we can't actually do that accurately at the start. So being careful around exactly as you've said, we can put together a contract for this amount of work. And if it's a very risky project, you might only be able to scope in the proof of concept phase. If it's something you've developed before, you might be able to say, look, here's an estimate, or here's what we think it's going to cost for a mature, fully working, maybe not compliant, maybe not fully tested and meeting all regulatory standards, but here's a pretty mature product and we can give a price for the whole development up to production. And I mean, if it's really, really simple, you might be able to give a ballpark all the way through production. But again, you would never really want to promise that. And it's just one of those things that, like, my journey has been, which I'll go into a bit later, but being that freelancer at the start, over promising, but unintentionally, right? Unintentionally over promising. So yeah, absolutely. Different contracts for different phases. We do a pretty open-ended type contract, agreeing on scopes phase to phase and agreeing on, each month we revisit that and look at what's next, what's up and coming, versus then that long-term support is a whole nother different can of worms. And there's not a lot of hardware support, but you'd be surprised what can be involved in terms of, take for example, test fixtures.
Yep.
If you've got a product that is, 10,000 volume a month, that test fixture is going to need pretty consistent maintenance on it in terms of change.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. You would know, right? So you need a plan around that. And a lot of times, if you're working with a very large manufacturer and there's a high price involved, they will take on some of that and we can hand over that knowledge. But a lot of times, especially modern contract manufacturers, a lot of modern ones based in Australia, especially, we work a lot with, most of our designs are built here locally.
Great.
They don't want that responsibility. They say, this is your test fixture. And when I say your, I mean the client's test fixture technically, right? Not ours. So we need to be responsible for maintaining that. And that could be as simple as giving them a pack of test probes to swap out and a little instruction on how to swap out the test probes because they've worn out. Right?
Exactly.
That's as simple as it could be, but that needs work. That needs response time. You need to be able to get back to them within 24 hours. Otherwise, the whole production run stops. And
exactly.
Customers don't get their orders. There's a whole can of worms. And the manufacturing side is what I really love. My first job out of university at IntelliDesign in Brisbane, that was what made me fall in love with it pretty deeply. It was a manufacturing facility who did R&D as a service as well, an ODM, I suppose. And being able to be a designer there, it meant that, I got to do my own designs, be a part of that front end process, but really, write my own test procedures on how it's going to be tested, and not really mature test fixtures, but doing little ad hoc test fixtures to hand to someone else to sort of mature out a bit. So the manufacturing is something I'm really passionate on, as is pretty much everything in the process. But
that's interesting, because the manufacturing and test engineering side of it, that's where I spent several decades, is like, test engineering side of things.
Yes.
That's considered very unglamorous. Is that the correct term?
I would just say undervalued.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But it's not, nobody goes, oh, I want to be a test engineer. Like, who does that? It's like, it's usually something that you fall into. You start at a company and they go, oh, we need somebody to, that's how I fell into it. It was like, I was hired as a contractor, and, well, you need to go out and design these test jigs and then fix them, and, make sure write all the procedures for them, and, massage them and do all sorts of, go out there at midnight and whisper sweet nothings in their ear to make them work. And, you just sort of fall into it. Is that the same thing?
Yeah,
or did you accept a job knowing it was a test engineering role?
Well, no. Look, I mean, this has really been just the whole way through my career. I've been just the designer, but I guess it's always a responsibility that in one way or another does come back to the original designer in terms of at least telling the test engineer what he needs to test to, or what criteria to meet, or what is
Yeah.
the design, what's involved. And I guess ever since starting Zentronics, I was always interested and keen and excited to take on that fixture development, because I find I find it quite interesting. You know, you take, for example, you might have a PCB that's got 3 infrared sensors on it
Mm.
and 3 LEDs on it. Now, that's a very simple design to do from a design perspective, right? You buy these off the
Yeah.
shelf infrared sensors, they're I squared C, you pop them
Easy
down.
peasy. Yep.
Yep, LED, current limiting resistor, connected to a GPIO pin, whatever. Testing that in production, that's a pretty complex product to develop. You need fiber optics to measure the LED
Yeah,
light levels. You
exactly.
need
Yes.
some sort of moving object to cover the infrared, move away from the infrared, measure,
Hmm.
sort of feedback of, is that the reading we expect? The fixture development I find is just as exciting and interesting as the product development. I just don't
Yep.
think people, it's just that awareness isn't out there. I feel like if in university they showed images of text fixtures and there was a subject on test engineering
Yeah.
in electronics engineering, I feel like that would be a huge interest for that industry. There would be an oversupply of engineers probably.
Right. Yeah. If there was
I just think I just think the demand's not. I just the awareness isn't out there. That's
no,
all.
it's something that's never test engineering is something that's never mentioned in
Yeah.
any school that I'm aware of. Anyway, I don't know. Leave it in the comments down below if anyone has any evidence to the contrary. But no, it was just never
Mm.
spoken of as just something that an engineer is expected to do often, especially if you're a one-man band
Yes,
engineer.
absolutely.
If you're
Yeah.
if you're the entire engineering department, as I have been several times, it's like,
Yep.
yeah, every responsibility for all of that falls
Yep.
on your shoulders. So yep,
Yep.
it's just
Absolutely.
expected. So you mentioned, like, scope of work for jobs
Mm.
and things. Do you like quote an entire job, or do you go, oh, look, let's just do an open-ended number of hours? Which do companies prefer, one way or the other, like a fixed price job, or
Mm. Let's be real here. In my experience, and in 3 years of full time business, 4 years of part time, I've never found a client who didn't want fixed price.
right?
Um,
Okay, right. They didn't want to get into that open-ended.
Of course, I mean it's a huge risk for
Yeah,
it's a
right.
huge risk for any business. You've got
Of course.
you've got the spectrum of the startup green one man client who's got this idea for this
Yeah.
smart toaster or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you've got the other end of the spectrum where it's an established business. They might even have internal R&D ability. They just outsourcing a project, putting a tender out there for someone to compete with. There's this huge spectrum, and in any of those gaps throughout that spectrum, everyone there for one reason or another has a motivation to know how much a project's going to cost, right? That's
Right.
the reality. If they're a one-man band, they're funding it themselves. They need to know how much money they're going to
Yeah.
potentially lose on it.
Right.
If they're up the higher end of the spectrum, you might be dealing with just one stakeholder of many. You might be dealing with a project manager or a program manager, but they have someone they're answering to. They have a budget that
Exactly.
they need to
Yeah, yeah.
meet, right?
It's turtles all the way down. Yeah.
Exactly right. But this is the thing, Dave. It's been a bit of a merry-go-round, this quoting thing, and just the commercial, just the commercial side of the business in general. It's something I'm always improving, always working on. The position we're in now is we're pretty firm on never giving out fixed price quotes.
Okay.
It's the reason behind that though is it's because by doing, I guess I'm not going to say open ended, right? We give
Right.
estimates, we
Yep.
commit to those estimates, we stick to them, right?
Hmm.
We don't say this will be 20 hours or this will be 50 hours of work, and then we go at the end and say, hey, it took 100. Sorry, that's not
Right.
how
Okay.
the process works, right?
Yeah.
It's something's happened. Hey, look, we need to discuss this. There was a risk that this would happen. We flagged that risk at the start. We need a way to move forward. Here are some options. This could be another 10.
Hmm.
This could be another 20. The reason for that, though, I mean, a couple of reasons. First, obviously, unknown, right? We're doing new product development. We're not developing white goods a second time. We're developing new products that have generally never been done before. There's just unknowns, right?
Got
Unknowns
it.
with trying out new sensors, new connectivity technologies, just integration. A plus B is not always A plus B when you start to add sensors together and whatnot. The third thing is there's stuff that we can't ever promise. So EMC, right? EMC.
Oh yeah, right.
EMC.
Yeah.
Right. You got it. So EMC is something I'm super passionate about. Last week, I was a part of one of the Worth seminars. I was one of the speakers. I gave a 2-hour talk and a real life demo of using some of the near field probes, the current probes, all of that sort of thing.
So was that recorded? Is that available anywhere, or?
I think it was recorded. I can share that with you at some point.
Okay. Yeah.
I've just thrown some images.
If we can link that in, we will.
Yeah, of course. I've just thrown some images in the Google chat.
In the chat.
So just circling back to that point, the point is, I'm not going to say I consider myself an expert in this. I'm saying this is something I'm passionate about. I've put a lot of time and effort into doing training courses. I'm the only engineer I know who's paid out of my own pocket time in the EMC lab to test out experiments for my own designs. Of my own accord,
serious
right?
Commitment. Yeah,
right. And so I can tell you, in terms of what's the phenomenon where you think you know stuff, but you actually don't know, and when you know more, you realize you don't know anything. What is that?
That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is that the
Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yep.
So Dunning-Kruger effect, I'll consider myself past that spectrum where I know no matter how good you think you are, you can't really ever guarantee the EMC results of a product. You can put in as many power filters, as much good design with stack-up design and considering crosstalk and coupling and putting shields over all the components on the board. But really, there's always, for example, a little bit of off-the-shelf hardware in there. There's always a plug pack that you're using. And the plug pack will
variable. It's the variable.
Yeah, right. You got it. So that plug pack could have the RCM logo, FCC, CE, CCC, like whatever you want. It could have passed by 2 decibels though. And when you integrate it into your system, it's that 2 decibels will no longer be enough margin for you to pass. Yeah. And that's what I talk about in that presentation, right? Things like Raspberry Pis. I love them. We use them all the time. They give a lot of leverage. That leverage is a trade-off we take in the development process. But the trade-off you're taking is that risk for supply, that risk for EMC, that risk for safety. Like, there's a lot of things that we can't promise, certainly not fixed price on a whole program. And then the fourth thing, which is really the thing that I care about the most, because I've done fixed price a lot, and those first 3 things I was always happy to risk at the start. And I've absorbed hundreds of hours, right? We don't do that. We don't have to do that anymore unless we've made mistakes, of course, right? If we make mistakes that are blatant, they're negligent.
You've got to eat that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
The fourth thing is collaboration. So this comes back into the Agile Manifesto. I'm not sure if you've read that. This is a very software-minded thing, but by having that those agile principles, it means you can collaborate with the client. We can say at the start, instead of saying to the client, if you want a fixed price, you've got to tell me every LED color you want, what the display is going to look like. You've got to tell me, do you want 4G? Yeah. Do you want 4G or do you want LoRa? You got to tell me, do you want the battery to be 1 amp hour or do you want the battery to be 2 amp hour? You can't expect that of a client, I think, to be honest.
It's just like trying to get a board fully routed, fully auto-routed. You've got to specify. You've got to spend a month setting up every parameter before you can hit the auto-route button and then expect it to come out perfect.
Absolutely.
And the same thing applies there. So
I'll share you, again, we can share this image just as a little JPEG or something, I suppose. But this is something that is in our capability statement that I share with clients. And this is exactly on this topic. That's the first image there I've just sent.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Just for the listeners, that shows traditional product development. You've got requirements followed by design. Followed by development, followed by V&V, your testing, validation, EMC testing, and then production, right? That's the waterfall.
That's the workflow.
That's the theory. And then, we gladly tell clients that this is what happens in reality. So a couple things. You spend half the project time doing requirements, not the first 10% of the time. Immediately when you start to do the architecture, you realize we put infrared sensors in the spec, but we actually need LiDAR sensors. So let's change the spec. All right, that's fine.
For those who don't realize why I'm laughing, it's because I'm looking at the image here, which there's a lot of loop backs.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. Right.
Well, look, I'll share some more, right? So We get to the
Oh, that's
development, we're
great.
doing the detailed design, and we realize,
Great.
oh, we specified the PCB and the product has to be 100 by 100 by 50 millimeters, quite a small little compact product. But we also packed in all this technology. Those are conflicting things.
Yeah.
That technology and that battery and that thing needs size. You can't have both. So PCB doesn't fit enclosure. Okay, well, we've got to go back, change the requirements. The enclosure gets larger.
Or you'll have to tell the poor customer that, sorry, this is going to actually cost twice as much to actually make because you're now using 0201 components instead of, something else, et cetera, et cetera. You've now gone to like an 8-layer board instead of a 4-layer board, and this is going to cost you more in 100,000 volume,
You get it, right? So look at the last
Yeah.
one. Production. You get to production. You get the designs done as far as anyone's considered.
It's done.
And what do we have? We have a feedback line that says production quote's too high and we need to cut features.
Exactly.
Right? So I left that to last because that's the real reason we don't do fixed price, fixed this, fixed scope jobs. We assume that us and the client don't know the answers. And that's, to be in a position to do that as a consultant, you've got to be pretty well established. You've got to have rapport. You've got to have proven projects behind you. You can't quit your job, go as a contractor and say,
no,
I can't guarantee anything for you today,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I assume that you've got clients who approach you, and they want that fixed cost, and you go, look, and you tell them you explain all this stuff to them, and they just storm out going, Walker, you must be hopeless if you can't give us a fixed quote. And they just don't understand because they've never been involved in this before.
Every day, Dave.
I'm sure that's happened.
Every day.
Every day. Okay, right.
I'm the salesman for the company, right? I'm still... Fortunately, I get to be quite hands-on still. Yesterday I was in the EMC lab doing conducted emissions troubleshooting. I'm very hands-on still, which is great. But I'm the point of contact for business development, I suppose, and that those conversations come up every day. Now, what we can do is, we can, in very specific circumstances, promise these sort of fixed price things, but it's a very limited scope. It's got to be something we know we've done before.
It has to be something guaranteed simple that there's not going to be any gotchas. Or if there are, 3 different ways to circumvent it. And,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right.
Something like, for example, a client, it's brand new and they want a demo with a display and they want a temperature reading, like something super basic, but it's in the context of another product. Maybe they want to put things together and cobble up a big demo. Well, I know we've got a Raspberry Pi Shield with a temperature sensor on it.
5 ways to do that. Come on, a dozen ways to do that. Yeah,
totally. So I could say to that client, look, here's the price. We can deliver that in 4 weeks. No worries.
Yep.
So
excellent.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot.
So how did you start the traditional way, as everyone does? Like, as you said, nobody just suddenly decides they're going to open a design consultancy. I presume you started the midnight engineering thing. You were working at a company and then you got a friend or the company asked you to, or some other company asked you to work on something, and you did.
Yes.
Literally at right at midnight. That's why it's called midnight engineering. You're working through midnight in your garage, moonlighting, whatever you want to call it. So that's how you started?
Absolutely. And
at what point did you know that it was going to, like, oh yeah, I should probably do this as a full-time, I should start up my own company?
Before I say that, I must say I work really hard to be in the position I'm in. I've got a dream job here. I walk 5 minutes to work. I've got a team of 6 now. They're awesome engineers.
Nice.
Love working with them. I get to work on all these awesome projects, get to work on from start to finish, and I'm very lucky to be in that position, but wouldn't be here without my network and who I've been working with. And that includes these people at the very start, right, who gave me those opportunities and sort of gave those tip-offs. I suppose the point when I went full-time, I don't know if I was necessarily expecting or ready for it. Effectively, what happened was one of my employers who I was working with, I won't say who, but they were aware of what I was doing. They were okay with it. I was working.
Sure.
I had the same client for the 2 years I was moonlighting. It wasn't like I was working on 4 or 5 different projects and all this. It was probably like a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000 work by the end of it. I was probably charging way below what I should have been.
Right. Yeah.
And that was fine. So they didn't really mind. Like, it's not a conflict of interest. They're not interested in doing just PCB layout work or whatever, right?
Yep.
But they did sort of approach me and say, look, we love your commitment. We love your passion. It's amazing. But, we don't really know what you're thinking about day to day. We don't know what's going through your mind. We don't, and very true. I
Okay.
could be sitting there looking at data sheets and they don't know, is that for my side project or is that for my,
Exactly. Yeah. I can understand.
I'm glad you can, because as soon as they said that, I
Mhm.
went, that's totally fair. That's 100%
Absolutely.
fair.
Yep.
They're paying me a salary, right? This is
Exactly.
absolutely fair. So I didn't
They need focus, right? They're paying you to focus on them, not.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when they approached me with that, I didn't make a decision then. I thought about it for a
Mhm.
week, and I thought, even just with this one client I've had and doing this at nighttime, I am just in love with this. I'm just so in love with it. I can't give it up.
Mhm.
At the age of 22, I was like, I can't actually give up this side work.
You're right.
So look, I decided to take the jump, I suppose. And the thinking at the time was what a lot of people do is, okay, I'll take this jump and maybe this employer will get me back as a contractor one day a week anyway, and
Yeah,
I'll have
right.
some cash
Yeah.
flow, right? I'll say that didn't happen, right?
It
So I
didn't
didn't
happen.
have that. I
Okay.
didn't.
It actually surprisingly does happen a lot.
It does. Oh, absolutely. People
It's very
transition
common.
to 2 days a
Yep.
week or one day a week, and that's great for
Yep.
those people. For me, it didn't
Right.
eventuate to that, which was
Okay.
sad. But yeah, and I had that one client, and that work dried up pretty quickly, and then
Right. Murphy's Law, right? As soon as you decide to go full time, that reliable client you've had for years, it the,
absolutely.
the the work dries up. Yep.
Absolutely. And so in the early
Oh.
days, the work came through things like, freelancer.com, fiverr.com, these
Oh,
platforms,
okay. Right. I was going to ask about those. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's where the work came from. And again, pretty savage platforms to be working on. You're competing with
Okay.
people. Well, you're competing globally. You're competing
Oh,
with
yeah.
people who they only need to make $20 an hour to live an
Right.
awesome life there.
So, how much were you charging an hour on something like that, or were you charging job lots, or what?
Yeah, I mean, again, on that platform, a lot of it is fixed price bids. That's what a
Right.
lot of
Okay.
people ask for. A lot of people don't like the open-ended projects on those
Okay.
platforms either. So look, it was always pretty much fixed price, and it was always
Yeah.
tidbits. It was always design this laser PCB with a laser and a connector on the back, and design
Right.
this. It was never really those nice fleshed out full
It
projects
wasn't
doing.
a full design cycle from
No.
concept through to production, and yeah.
No,
Right.
exactly right. So, and then look, it was from that point onwards, it was organic. Eventually I found those bigger projects on the platform.
Mhm.
Eventually, one of them was a local person. I could meet them and actually catch up with them and talk about it. And,
Yeah. Right.
and then they gave me a referral. And
So,
then,
did they actually prefer someone local? I was going to ask, where do most of your jobs come from? Are they local, or are they? I know on your webpage you say you've done designs for like
oh,
half a
everywhere.
dozen different
Yeah.
countries, but
Yeah.
where's the majority come from? Is it local because they want to like deal with someone local? They feel more comfortable.
So this is the thing. When I started out, I didn't have a single client in Australia for the first 6 months, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
Again, just trying to compete globally, trying to just get on these
Yeah.
platforms. That's where most of the jobs are coming from. Most of the jobs on those
Right.
platforms aren't
It's just
Australia, of
sheer
course.
volume. Yeah, it's just like sheer market
Exactly.
market volume.
Yeah.
Most of the where Australia's only 2% of the global population or something.
Exactly right. So,
Yeah.
and then look, organically, it's literally just honed in slowly and slowly towards Melbourne, where we're based. Now,
Hmm.
at the moment, I would probably say 50% of clients are Melbourne,
Okay.
but
Yep.
I can gladly and proudly tell you, the other 50%, they're all Australian clients. I don't work with any international clients anymore, which is
Oh, you actually deliberately turn them down, or you're just not getting.
no,
They're
no.
they're
This is
not
just
getting them.
organically how it's evolved to. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Right.
This
Because
is
people
just
have maybe. Do you think that's because people have been burned? But
no,
or is
no.
it because you think people have been burned by overseas? The cheap Indian and Chinese, or whatever, contractors, and they've done an okay job, but no, it's like I would prefer someone local so I can talk to them. Is that a
Oh, I
trend,
think
you think, or
so.
what?
I think that's a trend, but I wouldn't say that's most of the clients we have now. This is their first time
Okay.
working with another
Right.
company doing product development, and a lot of the
Yep.
clients we have, again, not going to name any names, but they've worked
Hmm.
with other local design houses and have had
Right.
bad experiences and moved to us. Now, look, we've had clients who've walked away from us. I'm not going to pretend we're perfect either, but there's no clear distinction on why the clients are Australian. I think it comes down to just referrals. So now at this point, I haven't been on those websites for years, right? Now all
Mm.
the work is generated through referrals, through LinkedIn, through our website. So if you go to Google right now, Dave,
Yeah.
are you on there
Doing it.
now?
Yep.
Yep. If you search electronics design Melbourne,
Melbourne.
and if
Electronics
you
Design Melbourne.
if you skip past the
They're paid
sponsored
ads.
ones, yep.
You are number one. Congratulations.
Thank you. And look, it's been that for
Yes.
2 years now, and
Right. Yeah.
that's not tricky SEO work, and that's not high click numbers either. You know, it's just a website for a service provider, but it's
Well, it helps that you've cleverly got Melbourne in your banner title.
don't give away my secrets.
Oops. Yeah, because people put in specific keyword. It's just like in the YouTube video business. If you want your video to show up, the keyword has to be in the title. It's not good enough to have it in the description
Yeah,
or in the keywords. It's got to be in
yeah,
the title.
exactly right.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
but with that said though, like, you know, the contacts form on our website, that's 1 in every 10 is actually a good lead, right?
Right, yeah, of course,
that's
right. You could get a lot of tie kickers, huh?
not I wouldn't even say tie kickers. The
It is,
intent is
right?
there. Tie kickers is
Right.
someone who doesn't plan to buy, right? That's different
Right,
to
okay, yeah.
that's different to someone who's happy and willing to pay me $1,000 to develop a custom generator for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm
I
like,
know, yes.
we don't do custom generators for
A
your
free energy, a
home.
Tesla core. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of
Right.
the leads that come through there. But
Okay.
certainly, 1 in every 10 is an awesome, you know, an awesome lead.
Right.
And it comes to, you know, it's someone who
Yep.
genuinely is just looking around, doesn't know where to search, doesn't know where to Google. I've had 2 interns that we've gone through now, you know, high school interns, year 10 sort of age, and
Yeah, great.
they found us on the website. You know, so there's been good things that come from Google, don't get me wrong, but look, most of the key leads are really through those referrals and
Those
through.
referral things.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of networking, but the once or
Mm.
twice I did go to, you know, Electronics and even the All Energy Conference. That's the sort of
Oh, yeah,
green
right.
energy one. You know,
Yeah.
I've had clients eventuate from just going to the seminars and I've asked a question, and then someone's noticed my question was like, oh, you know, talking about electronics design, and then they approach me after saying, oh, you provide
Yeah.
that as a service. You know, we're looking for someone for that to help us.
Great.
You know, we've got this product we're using off the shelf, and we want to transform it into own our own IP. We want to add features, cut features, shrink the costs. You know, those sort of things come from those in-person meetings. But it's a good mix. It's a healthy, organic mix. I wouldn't say the trade shows are important. They're just a part of the organic mix, because I started the business just as COVID started. I left my full-time job in February 2020, right?
Perfect timing. Well done.
Well,
Yes. Well, is it? Was it a good thing to get into?
Well, this is the thing, right? Even though it meant I didn't get to go to networking or meetups and find maybe more of these local leads and
Yeah.
local business, it meant that I could focus a bit more. I mean, I could do 50,
You
60
work
hour
from home and
weeks,
focus.
and,
Yeah.
there's nothing I was missing out on, really, right? So, yeah, and that wasn't sustainable, of course. But, you know, certainly that first year and a half, when those lockdowns were a big part of life,
Mm-hmm.
I did work a lot. And I guess that probably shows, you know, it has only been 3 years full time. And I like to think we're pretty established. We've done a lot of projects. You know, there would have been 40 clients in those 3 years,
Oh, wow.
which is, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
nice.
it's substantial.
Wow, that's a lot.
And, you know, these aren't clients we're just designing boards for, right? We're now doing full product development most of the time, you know,
Yeah.
managing the whole project, bringing in industrial design companies to develop the enclosures, you know, as a partnership type thing, bringing things all the way through to manufacturing, like I said. So it's great. It's really awesome.
So do you have to turn away clients because you've got too many jobs on at the moment, or do you hire more people, or have you got some people on tap who can
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
actually take up those, I guess, overflow jobs? And overflow work. Yeah.
Yeah, so great question. Great talking point. I mean, scaling a consultancy is probably one of the
Yeah.
hardest things you can do in a business, right? We have no guarantee of work, right? We can't
Oh, no, it's either a drought or a flood, right? Usually.
feast or famine, right? So
Feast or famine.
what
Yeah.
that means is,
How do you deal with it?
yeah, exactly. It's a constant struggle, right?
Yeah.
you're always going to be, even if you have all this work coming in the door, I'm in the back of my mind, 3 months from now alone, we would have closed out all of our open tasks, open items, and there will always be more work, but I don't necessarily have a guarantee on that, right? And you can't expect a client to sign a 1-year contract for development.
That's right.
So I guess a couple of things. The first one is, yes, saying no. Again, I did write some notes for this, but saying no, that's one of the things. I think learning when to say no is one of the big parts of being
important skill.
Is a very important skill. So I always laugh about this. If at the very start of becoming a freelancer, I'm hungry. I want to get some projects.
Hungry for work.
So hungry for work. If someone walked in the door,
you'll take on anything.
If someone walked in the door and said, "I'll pay you $100,000," which that's not a lot for product development. That's a pretty average product development in terms of the whole scope. The software, the enclosure design.
Sure. Yeah.
Someone said, "I pay you $100,000 to develop me an X-ray machine." I would have said yes, right? I would have.
Yeah, because you just.
I would have gone, hell yeah, I can do this. It's going to be challenging. I'm going to need to bring in some people and talk to some experts, tear apart some X-ray machines. But I would have done that. Right now, I would run for the hills if someone,
of course,
even offered me $10 million to develop an X-ray machine. So it's just that's something I just learned. You have to learn that. You don't just know that.
It's too big a job.
Yeah,
it's too. Yeah. There's too many unknowns. There's too many.
But even if it was, I'll start paying you money. I don't care what the result is. We just give it a try. If it was some millionaire who has nothing better to do, it's still not. It's not fulfilling. It's not something we want to be a part of. It's not something that aligns with our values. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So
got it. Although if you had no work, you would take the money, I'm sure. If you had nothing, come on, you would take that free money. You'd pick that up.
Let's not go there. So look, and sometimes as much as we want those big projects, because that means you can resource, right? If I know there is I've got 5 projects. Each of them are $100,000 over the next 6 months. That's $500,000. That's enough for my payroll. That's enough for my bills, and that's enough for some small margin on it as a business to make a profit.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. But that's just not how it goes, right? We have so many work. We're always cleaning up. We're getting called for bug fixing and continued development on old projects.
Which interrupts your current project you're working on. It just kills the flow, right?
No matter how hard you try, if you want to be a good consultant, you can't be too proactive. Reactive is a part of the skill. Your customers will have, your customers and clients, they're going to have an expectation that you're a reactive person, you're a reactive business.
And they expect you to fix their problem now. They don't care what other projects you've got on. They're paying you to fix their problem.
Exactly right. So, and you can manage those expectations. You can, on case-by-case basis, you can establish, all right, we're handing this to you. If there's bugs, keep testing it. Get back to us in 2 weeks on what bugs you find, rather than call us as soon as you find a bug.
Every day.
Right. So you can set those boundaries a little bit, but not in all cases. Not at all. So now you mentioned contractors. So that's a good one. So if there's a lot of work, instead of saying no, how about we get a contractor in to just here, you're a skilled guy, it might be a grey-beard fellow who has all the equipment at home. He doesn't even need to come to our office. It could be another young engineer who's just, they want to work 1 day a week or 2 days.
Hungry for their fare. We'll take any job they can get. Yep.
It could be that. I've done a bit of work with contractors. I don't think I'll ever work with contractors again. I think
really
this is just because I take great pride in the quality of work we output. And when I say quality, I don't mean like quality management in terms of consistency of product. I mean the quality. I mean, our schematics, how readable they are. We use, block schematics. We have blocked chunks. We have all power ports on the top, ground on the bottom. We have all the resistors are a standard symbol. We have solid libraries. We have manufacturer part numbers embedded in all the symbols. We have all of this clean stuff. That's just the schematics, right?
Yeah.
Let alone talking about
there's
PCB,
like bombs and firmware, test procedures
coding,
and documentation.
GitHub, commits, pushes, all of that. Working with a contractor, there's a huge inertia if you want to expect them to do that. You need a long-term contractor. If they're a long-term contractor with you, I would consider that an employee, not someone you're bringing in just for one project, right? That's a different. That's a different scenario.
Yeah.
So if you take great pride in what outputs you're generating for the clients, And you want to be able to take that back off the contractor and actually understand it, understand the code they've produced, understand the design, why they made those design decisions when there's something biting you in the ass, 2 months later. Then it's really hard to do that on a short-term basis. So I think I will always just be saying no to projects. I will always be, sometimes we're under resourced. That's just the reality.
Well, that's the thing. Like you talked about before, you've got one full-time embedded firmware guy. It's like, well, what happens if you've got suddenly a flood of firmware projects that need doing? I mean, obviously you can do some. You might be able to jump in. Maybe one of the other engineers has a bit of firmware skills as well. They can help out. But
I'll just answer that one quickly. So there's other tricks, right? Like I said, consulting is a bit. There's a bit of trickery that goes into it. I don't like that side of it, but we could say to a client, okay, cool. Well, we'll start the project in 4 weeks. They've signed the contract. We didn't actually tell them when we're starting. We told them how long it would take to develop it. Well, we're not going to tell them. We don't tell them when it's going to start until they've actually committed to it. Yeah. That's a pretty fair thing to do as long as you make that clear and upfront. You're not hiding that information. The other thing is you can just stage your estimates for a project. And when I say estimates, I mean the time taken estimates, the duration, not the resource. You can stage that proposal to proposal based on how busy you are. So we've got a new project we're doing with it's a Raspberry Pi based one. The client's requested that because they'll do a bit of the software. We're going to do a bit of the software in-house just to sort of get it in a nice place where we can hand it to him to do the refinement, do the calibration and tweaking. So we'll do sort of the verification level software. But my software guy's just moved to Canada. He's going to be working remotely for the next 6 months, which is great for him. I'm glad I can give him that opportunity. It's hard to do that for a hardware engineer, of course, but for a software guy,
it's different. Software guy, it's pretty easy.
And he's gone to 3 days a week while he's doing that traveling remote work. And so I've staged that proposal as if we were under resourced. So that I'm saying it's going to take 4 weeks to get a Pi up and running and get some drivers written for RFID, when that would be a week and a half if he was here. You know what I mean? So, and that's fair. We're being honest. We're not saying it will take a week and a half and then stinging them later and saying, hey, we're under resourced. It's going to take longer. I'm being
exactly. No, they're not going to appreciate that.
No, right. But I'm being upfront and honest and saying this is how long it's going to take. And that's all they care about. All clients care about is the end result. They don't really care about the details of someone's sick today or whatever.
The details are your problems. No, they don't. No,
exactly right.
At all. That's a universal rule.
Yep, absolutely.
Is the client never cares about your problems.
Exactly. So
because they're paying you, they're giving you money, right? They aren't giving you money for you to give them problems.
Yep, exactly.
Right, or to whinge about your own problems.
Yep,
no,
exactly right. So
I don't want to hear that.
So look, the resourcing is a big thing, but as I just showed you there's besides just saying no, because that can be hard, right? If it is a good project, you want to make it work. And just as an example, you could have 5 or 6 projects, you've been working on them for years, you sort of want something fresh and new, and the client that comes in the door is one you'd love to be a part of, but it's a huge project, you've got all these other ones on. Sometimes you have to make tough calls in those circumstances, right? So, excellent.
Exactly. So if you're looking for an employee, as a design consultancy, what is your official, like, what do you call yourself? You're a design consultancy, or are you a...
I don't like that word, right? Because
well,
consulting is a part of the business and it's a core part of it, but most of our work is just development. It's just doing the work, right? We
So are you a development bureau? Are you a development lab?
I would say...
Are you a development service?
Well, in some ways we're a research provider, like a registered research service provider, but I would just say I'd say we're a product development firm specializing in electronics. That's what I would say in a mouthful, right? Because we wouldn't be interested in a product that doesn't have electronics. Yeah. So we wouldn't say we're a product development firm, full stop. And then contrary to that, we also wouldn't just say we're electronics design firm or electronics development firm because
that implies just a small aspect of...
Right, we're not a layout company. Right. We're not going to take your FPGA board and do it. We're not going to just take your product through EMC for you. That's work I've done before. I spent about 3 or 4 months where I focused on EMC and was EMC Technologies. I know you visited their lab. I know pretty much every single staff member there. They're a great team. They see me there every 2 or 3 weeks with all the projects we go through. And there was a time there where I was just consulting in that space. And so I've tried, these focuses and always come back to wanting to be a bit more general in the process. So
Got it. Your Google search result does say you're an electronics design and manufacturing consultancy.
Yes. Well, look.
Maybe that's a legacy description.
The whole website's legacy. The website was even...
Legacy, okay.
The website was before I had staff, to be honest, right?
Right, okay, right, yeah.
Like, for example, there's an image at the bottom which has a cool rooftop sort of view of our office, but that's a co-working space when I was by myself.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. Right. Well, I'll get on to the space in a minute. Remind me about that. But my question was before.
Please.
If you're hiring someone as a design company, are you looking for a generalist?
Yeah.
Would you prefer a generalist, or would you prefer a hardcore, this is the best firmware guy in the business, but he can't solder to save his life?
Yep. No, I love it.
Right.
I love it. That's a great question. And I saw something about this the other day. So I guess you have traditionally two kinds of employees in terms of skill sets. You have the T-shape, right? You have someone who's
right,
pretty lacking in skill across most areas in whatever field, in however general you want to abstract this analogy, right? And then they have a focus. They have a T sort of line vertically. They have a vertical focus. And a lot of times that makes sense. And then you have a generalist who might be, let's say, I'm not going to say like a U shape that's sort of good at everything, right?
Right.
Let's say like a V shape that isn't, no, not a V shape. How about like I think of a U shape, but one that doesn't go very deep. So sort of a stubby U.
It's sort of like you would call that a bathtub.
Yeah, bathtub. Maybe. You got it. Yeah, exactly.
Bathtub. Yeah, shape. Yeah.
Now, what's ideal for me, I think, from my experience so far, is neither of those. And it's an up and coming term that's being used. It's the V shape. So it's someone who, again, this is all just models, but it's someone who does have a specialty. They do go deep in a way. They might be
but they need to have a skill stack, right? They need to have like a,
and they might be completely lacking at the tips, right? They might have no idea how business works. They might have no idea how RF works, but they are pretty good at soldering. They're pretty good at getting a Raspberry Pi up and running, and then they're really awesome at embedded firmware.
Yep.
Right. So that like bare metal C stuff. That's a V-shaped type. That's exactly the sort of person I'd be looking for, I think. And I have experience, hiring a grad engineer and, mentoring them through the ranks. She's still with us now and she's been fantastic. It was a good experience, but I think in a consulting firm, you do really want an expert.
You want someone established. You're probably, if I had a consultancy with employees, I'd be looking for someone who, because you don't have the luxury of time of being able to, you're a small firm, you're working on 10 projects at once. You don't have that time luxury.
Exactly right. So it's been a good experience with that, and I wouldn't say I'd never do it again as such. It's just back then I could afford let's say $70,000 salary for a grad, whereas now I could afford a senior engineer salary. I could afford, if I needed to, hire someone on $120,000, $130,000, $140,000 salary, and they would bring in the value. Right back then, I didn't necessarily have the system set up. I didn't have all the tools we needed to get them being productive. So
Now back to spaces.
Yes.
Do you own your own space or are you renting?
Yeah.
I guess you need a lot. How big's your space?
So we're about
square meterage.
We're about 150 square meter.
That's reasonable for 6 people.
Yeah. We'll fit about 8, I think, comfortably at some point.
Yeah.
We've got room for a lab area now, like a dedicated lab area. We've got that. Right. We've got that, nice and staged with a bit of, safety signage and tape on the ground.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just a regular office space in a commercial office building?
No, it's. No. I wanted something a bit more
industrial.
No. I guess
combo.
Original. No. This is like an architecture style building. So I'll show you some.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you some photos. I do have some here.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So it's like an old Melbourne architected, old Victorian style.
Yeah, got it. Yep.
Building. It's a
high ceilings. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just above a shop front. Like on a main high street of shops and things. It's quite a groovy little space. Right. So I guess these are some photos I took a while ago, but there's one there that's just our sort of. I'll just set it now. Sorry. this only lets you send one at a
That's right.
time. There's just like the working area.
Oh yeah.
The next one here, we got
Got it.
standing. Everyone's got standing desks, which is great. I do love those.
Right.
And there's like a conference room. So there's
conference room.
there's sort of, if you look at the first image in the top left, there's sort of like an upstairs mezzanine area.
Yes, I see that. Yeah,
So,
it's like a
yeah. So that's where the lab is. In there, you can see that last photo, and then
oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
And then even
and it's like and it's curved. It's like a curved roof,
an arch,
kind of like a loft. Arch. It's a loft.
Exactly,
and
arch. You can see you can see the arch out the front down to the shop front too in that last photo.
Oh, okay, right, got it.
Yeah, so the last photo is like just there's some storage for projects and things. So
yeah,
so
were you renting that or did you buy your space?
Just renting. I do not have enough cash for buying a.
Right, in the current interest rate climate too.
So I mean, look, we were in that co-working space only until about 4 months ago. This is a new space for us. Right. We're in. So I did grow in that space, the co-working space, organically. We went from a couple of desks in like the open area, and I had to still do soldering and stuff at home, so I couldn't even get the team.
Oh, right.
I couldn't delegate those tasks. You know what I mean? That was a hurdle we had to go through, and then we could afford to then move into one of the sort of private offices in the co-working space. That was a nice step for us, you know.
Excellent. Yep.
And then we moved again into a bigger space again in the co-working space, where we went from 3 people to 5, and then now it's 6.
And then you went, this is a bit tight. Yeah.
It was a bit tight. It was actually more just value for money. We weren't doing the rooftop beers and the networking. We weren't.
All that sort of
We just weren't doing that anymore.
You were basically doing your own thing.
We were starting our own culture. Exactly right.
Yep.
So
so that's the advantage of the co-working space. For those who don't know, is if you don't have any networking already and you're looking to get into the field or something, you're looking for contacts, then you would, be in a co-working space. But if you've got your own niche thing and you've already got your own industry network of contacts, then you don't need that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
In fact, they're more likely to be in fields that you just don't care about.
Yes. Well, this is the thing, right? In the last space, this was not a hardware co-working. This was filled with recruiters, marketing agencies, freelance graphic designers. Like, this is a bougie Melbourne inner city type, facility, right? Yeah. So we definitely stood out, that's for sure, with all the oscilloscopes and cables and circuit
what's
boards.
all this weird? Yeah. Yep. Right. Okay. Yes. Very strange.
So I'm aware we've only got probably 10 minutes left. So is there another topic you wanted to maybe dive into and unpack, or?
Well, let's talk about the crazies. How many crazies contact you with their? We touched on it before with their, free energy Tesla device.
Oh my goodness!
It's how many a year? Right. I can see you just like face palming right now.
It's probably only one every 6 months, but
okay, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad, I guess. and some I have helped out, but you've got to be careful with what you are promising to help out with, right? One of them had it was a free energy device. It was this thing where you spin it with the drill to get it going, and then the magnets the magnets keep it going,
of course.
And look, look, it's generating 60 volts. Look, and then you put a resistor on it, and it drops to nothing. Right?
Oh God!
Just standard stuff. But for them, I did look, again. Just a side note with consulting. Nothing's unethical as long as you're bringing net positive value. That's the main thing. You want to bring net positive value to the client. And in this instance, they didn't want me to design the thing yet. They wanted just a power supply to use. They wanted us to show them how to use it, let them learn it for a few days, do what they needed to do. And that was an instance where, again, we didn't get too involved with it, but we did sort of enable them to do what they needed to do, hands off.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you had to be brutally honest with people who contact, usually they might send you a package. Sure, I can imagine you going, oh yeah, please send us your ideas or whatever you're working on. Have you ever had to be brutally honest that no, you're wasting your time and your money, don't do this because it's already been done or whatever?
Yep.
Is that?
So that's a good question, because even just, a week ago, I had an inquiry, and this is, again, I won't say the person, I won't say the industry, but let's say detecting fires, for example. Now,
right, okay, yep.
The spec I got was, it's got 360-degree thermal camera, 360-degree normal camera, the ability to detect fire from 1 kilometer away, all of these
Uh-huh.
all of these machine learning algorithms and all of this stuff. And I'm like, you want this in 6 months? This is CO2
Yeah,
monitoring,
yeah.
oxygen monitoring, all of this stuff
Yeah.
powered on a battery that lasts 6 months. I'm just like, no, like this just can't happen. And the problem is, though, you need something to back up what you're saying. You need to give an example like
Exactly.
this battery here is 10 amp hours, just simplifying it for the client. This is 10 amp hours. That means it would be running on 1 amp for 10 hours.
Yeah.
This system you're proposing, this would probably use 1 amp constantly, if all of these cameras firing constantly, not on a duty cycle, just constantly firing. This would last 10 hours, and this battery is the size of my forearm. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
So how big do we make this if you want it to go 6 months? You're talking about a battery the size of a small town.
Yes, it just isn't doable. It's completely impractical.
Yeah.
So do you just obviously you wouldn't charge them for that?
No. This is business development. This is business development. This is those early conversations. Now you can take it the next step and say, how can we make this work? What can we cut? What can we work out? And most clients are receptive to that. But of course, there are clients who will just say, nope, I'll find someone else. And you just have to say, good luck. That's the reality.
Good luck. And then, so would you, there are a percentage of customers that they will pay you for like a feasibility study, I guess, or a feasibility, how feasible is this? Give me some advice. Is that a common thing?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say common. I'd say any project that justifies it, we will encourage it. Like I wouldn't say, a project that's got a battery, a heater, and BLE controlling the heater. I'm not going to say, hey, we need to do
a feasibility study.
We need to do $5,000 feasibility document upfront, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if it calls for it, if it global scale asset monitoring, high volume, goes in every ambulance in America type product.
Yeah, okay, got
then
it.
Absolutely, we'll look at what's on the market, what could go wrong,
right. And so you would offer them, would you call it a feasibility study
for sure,
or a market study or market survey or something?
I'd say feasibility, and the market is inside of that. And again, this is the consulting side. This isn't the product design, the engineering development side. This is the consulting side.
No.
But yeah,
the good part about that is it's probably reasonably easy to cost that out because it's really just your time.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. You're not actually doing any hardcore development where stuff can go wrong.
No, right?
So
Absolutely.
it's just easy to cost that out. Or would you pad that less?
Yeah.
Would you pad that less than you would a different job? Like
absolutely.
An actual
hardware.
They don't call it hardware for nothing.
No.
Just because it's hard.
Exactly right. Look, we would absolutely be pretty fixed on what we give a price to that. We would say 40 hours. And if we go over that 40, that's on us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just it's a report. We do some research, we look around. And again, back to managing expectations, we can say, we'll touch on these topics. If we want to go deeper, we can talk about more scope to go deeper on some of these things we find out. We don't have to promise that the level of how deep you go in this report. That's not something you want to necessarily say, all right, we promise we will flesh out every single product that's on the market just like this. That doesn't, who knows how long that's going to take. Yeah, exactly. So it's not something we do a lot of. We've probably done, across those 40 clients, we've probably done that, 5 times, right? It's not something that's super common because a lot of the products we do, they are, they're not that they're new products, but they're not, they're integration exercises at the end of the day. We're using chips that we know we've used before. We're using a Raspberry Pi and a Shield, and there's complexity in especially the IoT stuff, provisioning devices out in the field and managing fleets of devices, all of that stuff. But most of those problems have been solved, right? We just need to integrate.
Right.
Yeah.
Will customers come to you and say you must use this FPGA or this microcontroller, or do they generally leave it up to you?
So I guess we prefer,
or this CAD tool, like no, you've got to use mental graphics. You've got to like.
No, so that's a Great Wall of China. Altium is that's our bread and butter, right? That's like asking a tradie to use this multimeter instead of your Fluke. Please use my JCAR multimeter instead of your $2,000 fluke. My
You're just going to go, no, you're too much trouble. Go away. It's
exactly
like,
right.
yeah,
I
yeah, right,
mean, my dad's a trade. My
right.
dad's an electrician, right? That's
Yep.
something he would be just confused if someone asked him that, and that's the same way I would
Right.
feel.
Yeah.
So what you're touching on there is you're talking about what I would call, technical clients. You're working with clients who they know what they want in a way.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. These wouldn't be just your inventor coming off street.
Yeah,
They don't know anything, right? Whereas,
exactly.
yeah, no, yeah, an existing technical company, and they might have used that
Yeah.
schematic tool in house before,
Yep.
but they now looking for a contractor, and they want you to use that as well.
Exactly.
For example.
Exactly. So again, back in the freelance days, that might be a prospective client. Now I would say that's
Mhm.
not the sort of work we're interested in. We're here to be the department. We're not here to be a resource for that client.
Right. Okay.
So if there was a spectrum of absolutely knows nothing about anything technical to electronics engineer we're working for, we wouldn't be interested in that far end of the spectrum. Our ideal client is someone in the middle, someone who can appreciate challenges, someone who can appreciate unknown risk assessments, who can
Yeah.
appreciate quality of what we produce, someone who might be technical in another field, or they might be a project manager, but just a general project manager, but not someone who is another electronics designer and we are just working for them as a subcontractor, if you will, because
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just gets too
Right.
tense, right? Especially things like EMC, DFM. There's so many ways to
Mhm.
tackle those issues that if they start reviewing our design and say, you've done a pi filter here, I would have done a T filter.
Yeah.
Why have you
Right.
done that?
No,
Like,
you.
no, 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 no.
Yep.
Just trust our judgment and just let us do our job.
That's why you're paying us. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Otherwise, you should have just hired an employee to,
yeah. Or a contractor. Right? I wouldn't consider us a contractor. Yeah,
or a contractor.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. In quote marks,
Yep.
yeah, they are paid by the hour. They come in there, they sit down, and they do what you tell them
They
to.
use your
You know,
tools. They use your equipment.
they use
Yeah.
your tools, your equipment.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Right.
They're just this
Yep.
is this is semantics, but it is important to have those
Oh yeah.
terms defined, I
Oh, totally.
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very important. Well, this is an absolutely fantastic discussion about.
No, thank you.
I mean, we could spend
Oh, I
like
could talk for eight
how
more
many
hours.
hours
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
hours? Maybe we need to do a part
Oh,
two
I'd love to do
on
that.
this
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
our amp hour's up. So
Yeah, I know. And
unfortunately,
we haven't talked anything
no,
technical. I haven't mentioned a
no, I
single
know.
chip or
No, we
PCB.
haven't mentioned a single
I feel
thing.
dirty, to be honest, because like I
Oh,
said,
you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm
we're talking business instead of
and
tech,
like I said,
right?
I'm very
Yeah,
fortunate because I'm not full-time business. I'm probably a good 50-50 split being on the management side, both, program
mm,
management and business management. And then the other 50 still, I've got my own projects I'm doing designs for,
yeah,
I'm going to a manufacturer in 4 weeks to deploy one of those test fixtures. I'm the one who designed all the insides of that fixture. I think that's
yep.
important.
Nice.
Being a technical manager, you need to still get that
Yes.
hands-on stuff. Yeah. So I think,
Although, at what point
yeah,
can
I
you
know.
anticipate, like, if you grew to 30 employees, would you still be doing that?
Exactly right.
Or would you hire a CEO at that point? Would you hire like an actual someone to manage the
Business side,
business
exactly right.
at that point?
Yeah, and
Is it
mm.
is it really annoying? Like, do you like
Oh
you
well,
sound like the guy who was like, I don't really want to run this business, but I just enjoy
no. Look,
enjoy the business, but I don't want to run the business kind of thing.
no. Look, don't get me wrong.
Right?
I think to be in my position, you've got to be passionate and interested in everything. You've got to be interested in profit and loss charts, balance sheets,
Yeah,
and
you would not have got into 6 full-time employees without
exactly that interest. Just the
that
interest in
interest
that.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Where I think ideally where I end up, and I think a lot of engineers would feel the same in my position, is somewhat of an internal consultant, right? So I may have someone managing the business, someone managing projects, managing the whole R&D
Mm.
department, and I basically come in to put out fires. I get to work on my own projects.
Yeah.
That's the ideal
Alright.
circumstance, I think, for me. But we'll see if we can get there eventually.
Well, I hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Basically Australian, you're not taking overseas work?
No. We'll take overseas work by
Oh,
any
yeah,
means.
you will? Okay.
But
Well, there you
like
go.
I said, it's just that's organically what's happened in terms of who we've managed to
Right.
get inquiries from and whatnot. But
Got
yeah,
it. Well, I pretty much think anyone listening to this show who's in need of these services, they're probably gonna be at least a half genuine contact.
yeah, of course.
If they're if they actually approach you with a,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we need something done. If they like the way if they like the stuff you're saying and they,
Yeah. Yep.
like to work with you, then how can they contact you?
The website does have the inquiry form there. It also has an email address. Like I said, the website is a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just as the cusp as I started to hire staff. There is one photo of me with staff member, and I did add in. I think there's a block there that's software development when I hired a software developer.
Right.
But it is a bit deprecated, like in here I have
of course.
I have design reviews as a service. We don't really do design reviews anymore. That's
okay, right.
I mean that's 6 hours of work and then we never see that client again. It's not really sustainable.
It's like
it's
not worth the paperwork.
Exactly.
Right.
You've got it. So
yeah.
please check out the website, have a look at some of the work and projects, but it is about 2 years old. So there's a lot of fleshing out I'd like to do at some point. But for now, anyone's welcome to reach out. Always keen to chat with like-minded individuals.
Yes. And if they do reach out, please mention that you heard him on the Amp Hour, because then he'll know that you're a genuine customer and not some nut job who's after his free energy device.
Yep. And hey, consulting and business advice, always ask your leads how they heard about you. That's for sure. That's a big bit of advice. So, yeah.
That is. All right. Well, thank you very much, Scott. It's been very interesting.
Thank you, Dave. It's been good. I feel like we should definitely do a part 2. I'd be really interested in that. So
part 2 sounds good, but we would have to focus on, okay, business stuff done. Let's just talk.
Let's talk tech. Yep, absolutely. And
sounds good.
Yep, excellent.
All right.
Thanks a lot, hey.
All right. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Catch you next time.